Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Unorthodox with Lolly Saruma. And on today's episode, I am very excited about this one. I've got a very good friend of mine.
Hey, what's up?
This is my friend Oto Bassey. Bassey. Yes. But we call him Oto Bass or Basics, whatever you want to call him. But it's Oto. In today's video, we are talking brand strategy, design, entrepreneurship, writing, and in a nutshell, that's what Oto does. So with that said, let's get into today's video.
Well, happy to be here. Firstly, thanks for having me on
Thank
your
you.
show.
Thank you.
I'm the first person on your show.
Yes.
Yes. So
Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so excited.
Happy to be here first.
Yes. Okay. So, like I said, so you are into brand strategy.
Yeah.
You are a designer. You write. You're in entrepreneurship. That's what we know the professional Oto to be.
Yes.
So let's start with who Oto is, where you grew up, your upbringing, that kind of stuff.
Okay, well, so I am Nigerian by birth and I guess everything else. I was raised in Nigeria for a while. I came to South Africa when I was about 16 and so I've basically been based here since. Firstborn out of 3 boys.
Also firstborn.
Yeah, you know the pressure. And yeah, I guess that's about it. Home life was great. I love home. I try to go as often as I can.
Okay.
Quite close as a family.
Yeah.
We had a very religious upbringing as well.
Yeah,
That factored into a couple of things.
Yeah.
But all in all, great. Love my family. Love my home. Love my country. As crazy as it can be sometimes. But yeah, that's basically my background. Came here to study, and a couple of years later, that's when I met you, and we started being friends.
So on that, Oto and I met in varsity at the University of Pretoria. I was studying finance, and you were studying architecture. And what happened to that?
Well, by the time we met, that was after that. I studied architecture in school. And that was cool. But while studying that, I found what I do now. At the same time, because I just always had the philosophy of trying a lot of things out.
Yeah.
Especially around that time, as young as I was, because the idea was to explore as many things as possible to try and find the things I was truly passionate about.
And how did you discover that?
Trial and error. But obviously you ask yourself certain questions like, what am I good at, and what do I enjoy? So I remember my first year actually in university, I was doing a lot of things. I used to write because I've always written. And I was exploring, learning how to make beats. I was DJing as well. One of the things I also picked up was a bit of design. My friend had a copy of, I think it was Fireworks, that's what it was called. It was like an old program. Played with that a bit, and then I found a Photoshop magazine. I bought one at CNA sometime, and I just got really taken by what I saw. And I've always been artistic as well. So even in my life before that, high school, whatever, I used to draw, used to paint. Had some experience doing that, and was good at that naturally. So I kind of figured, let me just gravitate and try this again. So I picked it up.
That you're good at naturally.
Naturally, that's the big thing. Because if there's already a natural sensation and love for it, then all you got to do is just water that plant, water that seed, and you make it into something. Which is, I've spoken about this in maybe my last other show I was on with Bromance, and I said something like, you got to look at what you do better than everyone else. Easily better than everyone else. Because that's your talent, right? That's,
of course,
that's your thing, that's your spillion. And so if you can identify that and go all in on that, the chances of your success become exponentially greater.
So when you were studying architecture, at what point did you realize that no, this is not for me?
Probably my second year.
Okay.
Yeah, probably my second year.
So did you then quit?
Not immediately. I did push it for quite a while, but it got to a point where, for me, just the mental strain of, I mean, there were a lot of issues going on at the same time. You know, I had a bit of depression, nothing more than a bit of depression for years at that point, which wasn't something I was used to because I'd never been that person. So at the time, I attributed part of it to just being just the age I was in. You know, being a young adult is can be a very, very tough time. But I realized a huge part of how I felt at the time was just due to what I was doing. And realizing that as much as I thought I wanted to do it, I didn't really enjoy it.
And it was consuming a lot of your time.
Consuming a lot of my time, a lot of my, and what kept me sane was everything else I did outside that. So I kind of got to a point where it just became very, very unsustainable. And I was like, okay, do you want to do what you're supposed to do and finish this? Or do you want to save your life and just do what you want to do? And it was extremely intense moments of my life, and very, very, not a choice I took lightly. But I just figured at the time that I know what I want to do, rather I just go do that.
And when you made that decision, what kind of reception, like how did your parents react to it, for example? I know your dad is like a big philosopher. Big, you know, he's a what do you call it? A leader. He's a big shot. Yes, he's a public figure. So when you are now deciding, okay, look, I'm not happy with this thing, I'm gonna drop it and sort of run after what I enjoy. How did you receive that, or your family as well?
Well, they didn't know for a while.
Okay.
And eventually, when I told them, you know, obviously they were not happy. It was a bit of a shock and all of that. And you know, they actually wanted me to come back. That was also on the table. So okay, like just come back and do whatever. But to their credit, and I don't even know why they let me. But to my parents' credit, I think they do trust me. In the sense that they might not always agree with my decisions, but they trust that I have the capacity to make them and to accept whatever came with them. So and I did explain what I was doing instead, and how I felt about it, and what the issue was, and why I felt like what I was going to do was going to work.
So it wasn't just putting with no plan.
Yeah, of course.
So you had a plan, and this is a way forward. So that helps a lot. Okay, perfect. So now you've gone out of varsity and you're pursuing this that you're passionate about. What kind of challenges did you face? So, let's say, what did you start with rather? Was it more just the design, or?
Yeah, so the design was the genesis of everything. And like I said, even while I was in varsity, I was designing, you know, so I had the experience of having clients in school. One of the properties I cut my teeth on very early back in the day was Strictly Hip Hop, which was this dance competition happening in Pretoria. It was quite big. And working with that team, working with my friends on that project, and being a part of that, my role eventually grew to becoming the brand custodian. So I designed everything, you know, from the magazines to the posters to the music to the merchandise. So it was such a great experience to just explore design and do all these things I was just so fascinated by. And at the same time gave me real experience,
you can put into a portfolio
as well. So at my final years of varsity, I did already start having clients, and the first things I was doing were, logos here and there, but mostly I got into posters, you know, because obviously staying in Hatfield, there were all these events. I started meeting a lot of DJs, a lot of people in the entertainment space, you know, promoters, and that was like my first real segment. So a few years, that was like the bulk of the work I did for a lot of these outlets, and that was interesting, and that just grew from there. Okay,
cool. So let's say now I just come out of matric, or just come out of matric, I'm going into varsity, or maybe I'm in grade 10, for example,
Yeah.
and I'm trying to, or grade 9, where you choose subjects or whatever. Okay, maybe not grade 9. So let's say post-matric.
Yeah.
And I want to know what is design, or what is brand strategy, what is a brand identity.
Yeah.
How would you describe that according to what you have experienced of it being, to someone that just wants to know what is the crux of design?
Okay, so let me just narrow it down to brand identity design and brand identity, because like design obviously as a field is very wide, very diverse.
Yeah.
So brand identity is basically the, you know, it's the visual, it's the philosophical, it's the meaning, it's all the things you associate with the brand, with a product, with a service, with a company. So brand is the sum total of all the, you know, ideas, impressions, you know, feelings, communications that, you know, an entity gives you. So that could be a company, mostly companies, that could be an NGO, that could be, you know, a country, that could be anything, any entity that needs to stand as being distinct and communicate has a brand. And the idea is how well is that brand curated and articulated, which is where the field comes in.
So you bring it to life. Basically.
Bring it to life, basically. So what does it look like? What does it sound like? What does it feel like? How does it talk? How does it speak? How does it communicate? You know, what does it stand for? All those things create a brand identity. And so, like I said, I started off with design, but realized over time and over years that a lot what people were looking for when they came to me wasn't just a logo. It was, you know, bringing the idea to life, like you said, just bringing that vision, that dream to life. And I realized, okay, I've got to study more into the back end of that, into the strategy of that, into, you know, the methodologies that go into building that brand, so that when you now design something, it speaks directly to something, and it's not just I designed this because it looks pretty. It's like I designed this because it's meant to communicate this certain thing about this brand.
Okay. And when you say you started design now, did you go attend specific courses for it? But I know in your bio you say it's basically self-taught. So tell us what that meant for you, what it is that you were doing for you to learn and absorb, to know how to bring the ideas to life, basically.
So I've, you know, upon self-reflection, I've always been an autodidact, right? Which is someone who learns best by doing, and like personal exploration. So even through all my schooling experience, my best experiences were the times where I was so engaged with subject matter, I would do my independent study of it.
That's interesting.
And that was something I had experience with. So I mean, it also gave me a bit of impetus to be like, okay, listen, I have nothing against learning or education, you know, just because this section didn't work for me, doesn't mean that, you know, learning isn't important to me. And in the world we live in today, with the realities of technology and what's available, and this was back like 08, 09, 2010, and this was the beginnings of so many things. You know, Facebook, YouTube was around, social media, all those things, you know. But even back then, there were a lot of resources online to learn. So I started with learning the software, and there were many tutorials. I'd go down to the computer lab at Res, you know, and just download tutorials, you know, go back to my dorm room and go through them. And as I learned to use the software, I learned to, you know, use it and start bringing my ideas to life. But it's been a process of continual learning. Like I'm learning every day.
I mean, given the industry, there's a lot of different softwares you can use, and a lot of different ways you can bring an idea to life, or storytelling, basically. So is there a direct, maybe not a direct, but like an entry level for someone who's maybe interested in design, or would you say, okay, go study this specific thing?
Well, obviously, like I said, we design, there's many things. So in design, there's UX design, for instance, which is user interface, right? Your apps, your websites, and things like that. You know, there's identity design, there's motion design, there's illustration. You know, there's so many different aspects to it. So it depends on what you want to do, but for all of these things, there are courses online, there are courses at schools, there are, you know, all kinds of ways to do. And the thing with like creative spaces and something like this, like the barriers to entry is not very high. So you can pick it up quite quickly, you know, and then everything now depends on, you know, how much you're willing to invest into the different aspects of this. Because beyond knowing how to use the software, there's also the theory of knowing what you're doing. Like, you know, I'm lucky because I do have a natural eye and intuition around. I can just tell when something feels right or doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
I couldn't always tell you why it didn't feel right, you know, but over time, you know, just, you know, doing my own study, doing my own thinking, you know, watching the masters, looking at what people do, be able to, you know, explain why this works and why it doesn't work, and, you know, the theory behind some of the things we do.
So what I'm getting is there's a lot of learning in the industry.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to learn a lot from different spaces.
Yes.
Whatever resources, you just have to learn.
Yeah, you just have to learn. You just have to learn.
Okay, so let's talk about brand strategy. So
Yeah.
you, I think with time, you've not moved away from design, but you've now become more focused on brand strategy as well. So let's talk about that. What is brand strategy?
So brand strategy is the process of defining what your brand is, you know, deciding, you know, what it stands for, why it exists, who it exists for, what it plans to do, what the future holds, your intention for that brand. So the reason why it's important is because, you know, brands that are well defined and that have actually built on the promise of their brand are some of the most powerful in the world.
Yes.
You know, the Apples, the Coca-Colas, you know, etc. Because they're very intentional about what they do, what they're putting out, and you know, it guides everything, and it ties really into business strategy as well. Because if you know where you're trying to take the business, then you know who your stakeholders are, and who you should be talking to, and how you should be talking to them. So all those pieces, that entire system is very, very important, and that's what brand strategy is. It's basically architecting that process and saying, you know, think a little bit deeper about what you're doing,
what you're putting out,
and answer these questions so that as you execute your idea, as you grow your business, you have a guide, you have a framework. You know, okay, this isn't my brand, so I'm not going to do that. You know, this is the kind of person we hire because this is what our internal culture is.
Stand for,
this is what we stand for. And that is really the power of it. So it goes even beyond the visuals to like the decisions you make in the business and how you actually run it. A lot of people don't necessarily like to do that. And at the same time, brands are also emergent in the sense that, you know, the more you do it, the more you build the brand. You know, every conversation, every communication, every design adds to the tapestry, to the story of what this brand is. So you can define a brand as something, and over time, and in conversation with your clients, with customers, that begins to evolve as well. And so it grows over time. As much as you define it beforehand, it also grows and becomes something over time, and that's the delicate balance between the two as you build your brand.
Okay, so you then bring a design or your design skills into the brand strategy, right? Correct. So with defining the brand, you also then put it together, let's say, with the design. And at the end of the day, I would assume it ends up in marketing. So do you drive a marketing strategy as well, or how does that come together?
Yeah, so it can go like any number of ways, but the general process is everything starts with the brand, because everything starts with the why, right? With the strategy. What are we doing? Why are we doing? So, and going through that process, more often than not, helps the client think through their business in a deeper way than they ever did before. You know, it raises a lot of new ideas or new possibilities of looking about your business. But once we've kind of like aligned that and set that in place, that gives us the brief for the actual design.
Okay, you know? I see, yes.
So we're not just pulling designs out of our ass now, you know, just or out of the ether. You know, we're saying that, okay, this is who we are. We need to have a design that speaks to who we are. Yeah. So it gives us, it narrows the goalpost.
That's great. So when we talk about passion and we talk about what drives you, I don't think I read it somewhere. I think it was a conversation I was having with a friend, and we were having a similar conversation about what is passion? What so some people will say they're using their passion to make money, but we had a different angle to it, or a different approach to say your passion should be something that solves problems. Do you believe that? Do you believe you're solving problems, or in what you do, what kind of problems are you solving?
Okay, there's like two questions embedded in there. One is that, do I even think passions should solve problems, first of all?
Yeah.
And then, are my passions actually solving any problem? So I'll tackle the first one.
Okay.
Because I did write about that a few years ago, and it was basically like trying to, unravel the passion problem.
Yeah.
Because passion can get problematic sometimes. So the longest shot is that I absolutely believe that everyone should have something in their life they're passionate
about. Of course, yes.
Because that's your soul, right?
But
that's
discovering
what
that is not easy, right?
It's not easy, and it doesn't always necessarily mean that passion should become profit.
Oh, so true. Yes.
It can be something you really just do just for you, just because you enjoy.
But it gives you life.
It gives you life, That's the case for hobbies, and it's a shame that we live in a world that wants to monetize everything. Some things can just be hobbies. It can just be to relax you, to give you something to do, give you peace, be a meditative, practice, that sort of thing. So that's fine. But if it doesn't hurt at all, and it actually helps a lot to bring in elements of your passion into your work, because like passion means like, what are you willing to suffer for?
Yeah.
We always try to identify passion as something you enjoy, which is great.
It's true.
And that's a big part.
Yeah.
But it's also, what are you willing to suffer for?
Of course. Yeah.
Because that also speaks volumes. If you enjoy it, you're also willing to like go through like some of the crap it takes to actually make it happen.
Yes, of course, because it's not like a walk in the park.
It's never.
I think that's what we mistake it for. Like, I'm so passionate about this thing. It should be easy.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's not.
It's never.
Nothing is as easy as it looks. But if you're passionate about something, you're willing to do it. Like, there are many times before lockdown where on a Friday night I'd be hard at work on something, and sometimes not even necessarily like a client project, maybe like something for one of my properties, that I'm working on and I'm doing. I mean, I'll think to myself like, you could be up right now having fun. Your friends are at the spot. You could be there right now, But I'm like, I wanted to do this today. I'm going to get it done today, and I don't mind suffering and doing this
for this purpose.
When I was studying architecture, I found it hard to spend 2 hours,
Imagine,
working on an assignment.
Right.
But then
those are signs that if you're struggling this much,
then it's probably there.
For you. Yeah.
On the flip side, at the same time, I spent 24 hours working on a poster. The only breaks I took were to sleep and to eat.
And you had no problem.
I had no problem doing that. So that's always another indication. Like, okay, maybe you shouldn't be doing that. Maybe you should be doing this. Like, go where the passion is. So it's very important. Now, making your passion actually profit, you've got to reach the intersection. And there was a great video by Chris Do of the Future channel on YouTube. They basically do design education. Really, really great channel with everything from mechanics. The Future. Yeah, without
definitely gonna check it out. Yeah.
Everything from actual design and training and logo and all that stuff to the soft skills and stuff around building a creative business.
Yeah.
So they try and bring the Ikigai framework into turning your passion into profit. So it's like, okay, what do I enjoy? What am I good at? And what does the world need? And that's the intersection. So if you're passionate to profit, you actually have to be good at it, not just like it.
Sure. That's deep. Yeah.
Which is where all the study and all the practice comes in. Is like you literally want to be good at the craft. You want to be good at it.
Yeah.
Because then you can command the fees that you want.
Yes.
And then you've got to look at what the world needs. Because if the world doesn't need what you're doing, they're not going to pay for it.
Sure.
Maybe not even need, maybe just want. Because a lot of things we buy are not needs, they're just wants.
Yeah.
If the desire isn't there, then it's not going to be productive. So you always want to find that intersection. And for me, it was like, okay, listen, I enjoy doing this thing. I enjoy bringing visions to life. I'm good at the design aspect of it and the craft of it.
And
always getting better.
You could make profits out of it.
And people needed it. You know,
Yes.
people do need design solutions. People do need strategy. People do need guidance. People do need, you know, consulting and ideas and all those things. So you combine all of that and you put it out, and then you have your recipe right there.
That is great. Okay,
Yeah.
that is perfect. Actually, I never thought of it that way. Okay, so now you know what you're passionate about. You know what drives you. You're doing this thing on a day-to-day basis. What keeps you? What keeps the drive? What keeps it going for you at points where you feel, look, I'm really low at this point. I really don't feel like doing it. What keeps you going? What's your drive at that point?
So, yeah, that is quite a good question. So, if it's something you're truly passionate about, right, that fire should burn for a while.
Yeah.
Definitely. So, in my experience, almost every year, once a year, I hated design.
Yeah.
You know?
What? That's your whole life, right?
Yeah, but for at least once a year for a period, there's a point I'm like, I hate this. But, you know, I discovered what that was over time. I was just simply burning out. You know, I wasn't.
Yes, you were not resting.
I wasn't resting. I wasn't pacing myself. I wasn't, you know, being intentional about a lot of things. So sometimes, you know, it's easy to get overwhelmed, especially when you get a lot of work. You know, a lot of people demand on your time, your skills.
Yeah.
And if you're not balancing that against taking care of yourself and giving yourself what you need, you will burn out.
Yes.
Even the thing you love becomes the curse.
Right.
The gift becomes the curse.
Yeah.
So
I can relate to that. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So solving that, you know, just you know, don't let it consume you helps to balance it out.
Okay.
At the same time, there are times, especially if you've been doing it for a while. Like I've been doing this for roughly 10, 12 years. And, you know, there are times where it starts to feel stale, you know, it starts to feel a bit stagnant. But the cool thing about like the space and about this, and I'm sure you could apply it to other things, is that there's always just more to learn and more to experiment with, you know. So that's also been the reason why I've evolved certain things. So I was only doing design up to a point.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I started doing the brand strategy thing.
Yeah.
You know, I did a course on that, you know, read a ton of books on that, read a ton of frameworks, started doing it, you know, started actually, you know, and that brought a new dimension to what I was doing. Also started doing websites as well, and you know, now bringing, you know, ideas to life on a digital scale and all these things. There's just so much to like do, you know. And at first it was like normal websites. Now it's like basically social platforms and like web apps and things that connect to each other. It's just interesting. So like you just keep.
So at a point where you feel like you're getting bored with something, you're like, okay, let me try something else.
Yeah. And not sometimes it can be something completely different.
Yeah.
But a lot of times I like to have them stack or connect.
Of course. Yes.
You know. So I mean, it's not like the skills I used before I can use again, just in a new way. You know, just in a new dimension.
Advanced way.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like that continual exploration helps to keep things fresh.
Okay. So basically, we should consider other aspects of whatever industry you're in. Just consider different things and branch out a bit here and there, so just to keep the momentum going. Okay, that's perfect.
I never like to talk about like dropping out of school and all that jazz.
Really?
Yeah. Still a little insecure about it.
Okay. For me, it's kind of important. Well, it is important because for me, I changed careers. So I have a lot of questions around why did you change careers. So, like, I just want to give one child home.
Because that's the thing. Actually, like as much as I might not like talking about it, but a lot of people do go through that same exact experience.
Yeah.
And it's to be like, listen, it's okay to do things differently.
Yes.
From how the world tells you to do it.
Of course, yes.
And especially in the world today, there's so many paths to success. And to get it. And I think if you have the basics in place, if you have strong work ethic, if you are a perpetual learner, and if you just going for it, like people make money off the stupidest things.
The most random things, right? I know. I mean, like in today's world, there's a 4-year-old. I think there's a 4-year-old child with millions on YouTube from making random videos out of anything that you could really make money out of anything. Okay, so now let's talk about Oto as a person. So
Yeah.
I know it would go hand in hand. I know it would go hand in hand with your career, obviously, because that's who you are. That's what, I actually read an interesting quote. This lady, I mentioned her in my other video, Miss Fiona. She's a career coach. So she's, I think on her bio or something, she said, if you ask me what I do for a living and what I do for fun, you would get the same answer.
Yeah.
And I would assume then your habits obviously have to interlock with your personal lifestyle and your career.
Yeah.
So we know, successful people have, and I don't know whether you're successful or not. But in my eyes, you're successful. So and also I'm speaking it in your life. So, so what would you say for you, your habits are that have gotten you to where you are now, your level of productivity, your level of creativity, or whatever? What habits do you repeat or are you consistent with that you feel have played a big role in who you are now, where your career is, the type of person you are? And
so I mean, those threads go all the way back to the teenage years, I guess. Back to high school even. And even those things played a role in all my decisions. Even once I leave school and all of that. So I've always been exposed to the ideas of what it takes to be successful, or at least motivational material. Let's say that. I was exposed to that at a very young age. And
so about that, in one of your videos you mentioned that for your birthdays,
my dad would buy me books.
Instead of toys or whatever you wanted. That's great. Or unfortunate, I don't know. You could look at it.
It was a little bit of both. But I mean, I was in boarding school, so it's not like I could take a PlayStation or anything. But the book was a standard gift from my dad. Luckily, I also really like reading books. And those books were very foundational for me at the time, because obviously these are my early formative teen years, and these books are important concepts that people should be learning, I think, at that time. So things like having a vision,
you learned at
a very young age, like having a vision, having a goal, working hard, believing in yourself, believing in your potential, being self-reflective, which maybe is the most important thing, because I was just always aware of what I was feeling and how I was feeling, or at least took the time to always do that.
Be aware, that's important,
To always be, I would stay in my dorm just to think and write, journal, really.
So you also started writing at a young age?
Yeah, I've always been writing, on and off in whatever format. So writing was big, and thinking, reflection was big. So that all needs to be intentional. And kind of deciding, okay, where am I going? What am I going to do? So when I got to varsity, my goals were do well, be great, do this, do that. That was the plan. That's the goal. As I'm doing that, I'm realizing okay, these are the challenges. I'm feeling like this. This is what's going on. Thinking through all of that, and then forging a path from that chaos. To be okay, I'm going to go in this direction, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. That all comes from self-reflection. That all comes from all those ideas and things I learned. Those are the habits, If you and the discipline, and the passion, just the discipline of craft. Because if you're going to be good at anything, you have to be doing it a lot. You're going to have to be disciplined at doing it. And those are really the core things, and those have always gone with me
over the years.
So even at the next phase, where I'm freelancing and I'm working and I'm doing all these things, the same principles still apply. It's always been aware of you, of what you're doing and what you want, and just doing the hard work. Doing come rain, come shine, whether there's a party happening around me or not. I learned to work in all kinds of conditions.
Interesting you mentioned principles. I did a video on mentorship, and one of the things I said in the video was that, or rather I was reading to the viewers advice that I excuse me, that I received from my mentors, and one of them was you need to be a principled person and you need to live by those principles. So it's quite interesting to hear you say that. And with that said, in your journey, did you get mentors? Do you have mentors? Or what is your feeling around that?
Mentors.
Or people that you look up to, or,
Okay, well, certainly, coming up in the design game. Especially in the early days, there were like a lot of designers I looked at, and I was really inspired by their work. There was Roms Deluxe. There was some guy named Chava, I think. There was a kid called Travi. He was making these T-shirts back in the day as well. Then early days of Facebook, you design with posting things. You kind of seeing people out there doing work, and I actually used to save their stuff. And I have folders of this stuff. And I just always look at this stuff. I always have folders of like stuff I like, and I'm always looking at them and just enjoying them and just dissecting them and trying to figure out how they did that.
So you were consuming the material.
That's a huge part. Consume the material. Every day as a creative, you've got to prime yourself with good taste. By looking at good things, because that influences what you make.
Your thinking.
That really does.
Right?
But for me, mentors have really been books.
Okay. Yeah, you read a lot, eh?
Yeah.
And also he has his own books. He has written two. Let's we'll get to that. Or did you write more?
Just two. Just two for now.
So
mentors, it really comes down to, books, and most of the people you might want to be mentored by, or they put out content. That's also the huge thing of putting out content.
Okay, so you're able to consume their content.
And kind of have those things influence me. I have had people in my life that have been like mentors to me, influential, but a little bit more indirect. Not a formal mentorship relationship. I've had bits of those, and I have my gripes with them sometimes, but they are very, very important. For me, I get most of my mentorship from books and content. And there was a time.
And whose content do you consume the most?
So right now, and that's the thing, it
depends on the phase, right?
Life is in phases. So I'm in a phase where I haven't really been consuming a lot of content of that nature anymore. But there was a phase, I think it was like maybe 2016, 2017, I did it deliberately. I just absolutely binged on, people like Gary Vee, Ty Lopez, Tom Bilyeu, Tim Ferriss, all those people just binged on their content, because at the time I was really just trying to, that's what I needed. I was really going deep in just learning the mechanics of business to improve my business. To improve, because you've got to know the craft and you have to know the design of the craft, the business of the craft, because that's a whole thing, that's a whole nother skill.
You could be a great designer, but you don't know how to run a business.
Exactly. So you got to know how to charge, how to target, how to position yourself. All those things are all skills.
Also how to sell yourself.
How to sell yourself, how to close the deal, how to manage things. And that is a whole different skill set. And so in that phase of my life,
that's what you
I binged all that. And also because I really just, at the time, really needed to buff up my personal habits,
Yes.
And I think it is good, at least for someone like me, to have those phases where you're intensively building that. Now the limitation of that is that very, very easily the content can replace the work. Right? So because you're consuming the content, you think you're moving, but you're not really executing at the speed at which you're consuming. So the consuming makes you almost feel full. Makes you feel like you already know, or you're already there, but you're not there.
You're not moving.
And the transition for me over the past 18 months have been kind of putting away from that and putting more of the focus into what my day-to-day is like.
And what is your day-to-day like?
I have a very weird schedule. But things like So I believe in making the day-to-day mechanics of your day work. If for instance, like exercise, right? A lot of people want to exercise, and a lot of people never really get the chance to. So my philosophy towards building habits is to start slow, start small, and make it more regular of a thing.
Yes.
And the more regular it is, the more of a habit it becomes, the more integrated into your lifestyle it becomes, the easier it is to build on that and to really train on that. So I try and work out every day, at least every other day. And I got some home equipment, especially just before lockdown, and just looking at my fitness for last year was a lot better than any other year, just because I reduced the friction to actually exercising. I just go into the garage and everything is there. I can exercise, and I have my set routines that I do. And because I've been doing it so often now, if I go a couple of days and I haven't worked out, I have to work out.
Yes, you feel like, no, I have to. Oh my goodness, I haven't done this thing in so long. Yeah.
So like my threshold in that habit has increased like massively.
So do you do that in the mornings?
It depends. Like my days of free flow, I have different templates of days I use depending on how I feel that day.
Template of your day.
Yeah. So it's really just my the stuff I've created for myself.
Yeah.
So people will say have a schedule, right? So you think that every day you should wake up at 8 and then run your day in a certain way, but that gets boring.
Yeah,
so
it does.
I have a template for a day that's all work.
Okay.
And I know what that day kind of looks like. I have a day that's kind of balanced on what that looks like. I have a day that's no work, it's just other stuff on what that looks like. So I can adapt my day based on my need for the day.
For the day, okay.
So that's the way I do it. It's just all about looking at the habits you want to install in your life and installing them. It's just making them easier, reducing friction, making them systematic. And the idea behind that is if you can systematically live good days over and over again, you'll automatically reach certain goals.
Oh, that's amazing.
It just becomes the baseline. So without all the effort that it takes to reach goals, you can live yourself at least into a better space. And then if you want to train, if you want to go for something, you can do that.
Increase it,
Yeah. So for me, it's really things like where I eat, where I exercise, the way I work, and trying to install more for just projects and creative stuff that does not work. So that's like the process I'm thinking about. Okay, how do I make the time to make stuff, because I haven't been making as much of the
making your own stuff
as much over the past thing. So that's part of it. But bringing it back is like, for me right now, it's like, how do I get results? Right. That's really the thing. How do I get results? Not how do I play at being successful. How do I be successful?
Actual results,
because if you look at life, like the people who succeed that don't necessarily check all the boxes that these people say you should check as far as personal development is concerned. So
I think we're so hard on ourselves though to sort of follow a specific manual of how you should be successful.
But like I think that the core at the end of the day is like just be you, like be the best you, whatever that looks like, but be you and let you work for you. And if you do that, and if you're consistent at it, and if you're doing the things that you really should do, you raise the chances of success.
And whatever success looks like.
Whatever that looks like to you.
So let's talk a little bit about the writing. So Oto has like over 200 blog posts on his website. What is it called?
Oto Bassey.com. It's my name, surname.com. Link it in the description.
Yes, we'll just put it there. So you can go check out on his website. He's got a lot of blog posts, very helpful. I read it, obviously. And you've written 2 books. Also about personal development. And what pushed you to? Yes, you're a writer, but what made you feel like, okay, now I want to share this with the world?
I think a big part of that came with the anxiety of turning 30. That is the honest truth.
That's crazy, because I'm turning 30 this year and I had literally written a list of, girl, you need to do these things. Okay, so I'm not the only one. Okay.
No, that honestly, like if I'm just being honest right here, it was the anxiety of turning 30, lit a fire under my ass, and I just kind of went crazy for like a year.
That's what I'm doing. Yeah.
So I went crazy for a year, and I think for that year I published like a blog post every week at least, maybe
Yeah,
sometimes
you
it
were
was
going
2.
hard, hey?
And that was the year I released. I did the first book, and then in December of that year I just wrote another book out of the blue, like in 7 days. But then I got burnt out after that, which is why I kind of like, listen, slow down, whatever.
Let's relax. Yeah.
We've gotten that out of our system. let's make this a bit more sustainable. So it was the anxiety of that, but also it culminated with what I was doing in my life and behind the scenes and stuff, because it was really just, the anxiety of turning 30, and that was like maybe 2 years out from that, kind of being like, okay, by this time I kind of want these things to be in place, and I did get those things in place. I actually did achieve the things I'd set for myself at the time, but it was just a very, very intentional space. All the things I was learning about being able to execute at that level, I was sharing as I was learning them, and I was like executing them, and all those pieces of content are great in my opinion.
They are.
Those books were powerful, life-changing for some even.
Yes.
And I'm still gonna pick that up. I'm still gonna like flesh and I have like plans for more books and more things. So why I took the step back was to just reconcile a bunch of things for myself. Because first of all, when I first started writing, I always used to say I didn't know why I was writing. I just felt like I needed to write.
Right. So you just had a burn.
I just had a burn. I just had a need. I just had to write something. So I wrote. And I haven't necessarily felt that way.
Okay.
But it's because I put out all this stuff, and it's you don't want to be the shoemaker without shoes. I'm great at writing things. I'm great at articulating things. Not always as great as putting them to practice.
Okay. I see. Yeah.
So for me personally, it's like take a step back and work on the mechanics of it. Actually just do it. Actually become good at doing and good at living it, and then from that space you can now come back and write about it again. Because it's easy to pontificate, it's easy to preach about what people should do.
But the
doing is the hard part. And I think it's important that if you're going to say something, you should, as much as possible, try to live up to it. And I mean, it's very, very hard to live up to it, and it will always be imperfect. But and there is a space for preaching and saying those things, because things will motivate, they will inspire.
Exactly.
But for me, it was like, when I write about success, I want to feel successful. I want to feel like I hit the goals I set for myself, and I did it. And I'm talking about it. I'm talking from that experience as well. I can have all the theory, but I want to kind of like bring it home for myself. So that's been like my journey at the moment. And when I do write, I kind of write, and I try to write now in a space that's not completely colored by the personal development genre.
Okay.
And it's just more life. And more like I'll
experiences.
Like I'll pick lessons from video games, and I'll talk about video games and the lessons I learned from that. I'll talk about just things that are more grounded, and I don't think I've ever necessarily been preachy. Maybe I don't know.
Just
but
some you have.
perhaps comes with the territory. So I've just tried to balance it out. Just understanding that it's okay to be messy. It's okay to be human. I think a lot of trying to do all these things is trying to get control of life. It's trying to put life into box. It's trying to feel like you've conquered life. But you can get everything. And that was going to be at the end of one of my books. You can get everything and still be unhappy.
Right.
And not be fulfilled.
So
you can tick all the boxes
and still not be fulfilled.
And that is a question, that is a thing you really have to work through.
And you feel fulfilled at this point?
Yeah, I do feel happy.
Yes, and that's the most important.
And at peace.
That
I like what I like.
Yes.
I am who I am. And I do what I do, and that's it. My space now is just doing. It's just the rubber hits the road. It's the unsexy stuff. It's the behind the scenes. It's the doing.
Speaking of the doing, I think my friendship with Oto has always been. We talk a lot about these things, obviously off camera, whatever. But one of the like when I had the concept of starting the channel, you were the first person I spoke to about. I'm like, listen, I've got this concept and I'm trying to do this thing.
Yeah.
And literally your answer was just, okay, just do it. Just start. Let's do it. Let's just do it. And I think I can see it in the way you live, in the way you speak. It's just a matter of doing, so we can write and read and be motivational about whatever it is that we want to motivate people with, but you have to do it. And if there's one thing that I've learned from you, it's definitely just the doing. And I really appreciate that. And I think we have said a lot. Actually.
It's like an hour conversation.
We have said a lot. And thank you so much for being my first guest. And I thank you so much. And so you guys can follow Oto on all his socials. I think it's Oto Bassey. I'll just put everything on the links. You can download his books. You can read his blog posts. You can, follow me as well at Lolly Surungwa on Instagram and Twitter, across all socials. And thank you so much.
Thank you, and congrats on starting your channel. I hope to see it grow and go on for a while. I'll be watching closely.
Please remember to like, comment, share, subscribe. Oto, tell your people to subscribe to my channel, please.
Subscribe to Lolly's channel, guys. It will be great. It will be fun. I mean, I'm sure you enjoyed this talk, I hope.
Do let us know if you enjoyed the episode, and going forward, let me know if you have certain people in mind that you would like me to speak to. Give me suggestions or whatever it is. I'm open to suggestions. And that is that for today's video. Remember to subscribe. Thank you guys, and bye.